IDHBNY, Iron Disciple, Hammer Valley, New York. Still battling this elbow, but we have won an incredible battle today. The Great Escape has begun. West Ham 3, Sunderland 1. Initially going into this game, I had predicted 3-0. Um, but in that first half, it felt like we could have easily nabbed 4-0, 5-0. Fernandez is the one. Is the one. Somerville, I've been telling people, you put the right components together, he will absolutely deliver. And it was never a doubt in my mind that he was not pro league material. When Kudus left, it was like, oh man, it felt like we had trampled potential because he was promised under Lop a more central position, got put out on the left footed, didn't work for him, and developed like almost a performance atrophy and things like that. And then going into the second portion with Graham Potter, kind of shrugged, looked down, um, things like that. But granted, it had its inner dynamics that, relationships in football are complicated, to put it lightly. Wow. I mean, that first half was probably some of the best football I've seen in a long, long time. You can tell the difference that Taddy contributes and makes. Pablo, I feel like, is an optical nuisance for the opposition. That he's Pablo's almost got a little bit of an, um, even though Socek has been mustered the past couple of games. Pablo almost has that kind of effect of being out there and presenting as a nuisance. I think he's more of a psychological feature, but also could be, maybe, who knows, bringing the team together in morale. But he's a little bit, he worries me a little bit. Mav and Tadibo, mustard, absolute mustard. There's a little bit of shakiness, but that's always to be. Mav had a nice little flick back to Areola. I thought Areola was phenomenal in this. His distribution was a little bit shaky at times. I was like a little scared, but I actually thought he was really good. Actually, I can't even really rag him about that at all. Um, Sunderland, people were saying, it's the absence of certain players and things like that. I think we came to this game to win. Paco Jimenez, his contributions to the team, I think, in my personal opinion, have contributed to this dynamic of a first half being incredibly front-footed, attacking, Scarles bullying Hume, Fernandez just being an absolute, like, just pleasure and privilege to watch. Um, Taddy being tight, very solid. Um, you know, I mean, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I can't speak ill really of anybody in this game, at all. First half, I think it came down to how it was approached in the second half. What I will say is this, first of all, Somerville, I have never doubted. So many people were ragging on him, like, oh no, he's a champ, he's a lower, maybe he'll do good at like a club in this league or whatever, that league. And it's like, no, he's I've never doubted for 1 minute that Somerville was not going to turn up and show and prove. Like, he's been a phenomenal player. It's just been, you know over being under certain circumstances and variables, but that's for entirely different video. I felt like we were bringing them the pressure in the first half. felt like Bowen has been reinvigorated. He was getting stuck in there. I feel like everybody did their jobs first half, and I feel like second half the the error, if any, was that we didn't make. See, by the 56th, 57th minute, and this actually is not what I've said. Somebody else made this comment. Um, is when the game gets psychological for us, and that's when the fatigue set in, and then we drop deep, and with that, the psychology of the low block you know is a bit tough. But Wilson being subbed on is something that needs to perhaps happen like straight away. Um, Although Wilson to me has been an absolute battering ram. I absolutely he might be my favorite hammer currently, and I never thought I would say that because he did mug us off in the past, but he was absolutely he's phenomenal, man. I feel like we were robbed of a goal, or an ability to get a goal. A couple, the ref. It was weird. The refereeing was all right. It wasn't great in the first half. It was okay. Second half, it just went completely like this guy has a Sunderland shirt underneath his uniform. But no, no, we came out on top. The Great Escape is underway. Um, Goodness me, I'm shaking from how happy I am with that performance. I felt like we could have gone the distance on them, maybe done that earlier and straight away, so that if we conceded that goal, we went into the half 3-0. I thought to myself, my prediction of 3-0 victory was gonna come to fruition, but it wasn't meant to be. It was gonna happen, but it always seems to happen for some reason in when we drop deep, of course, and because that increases the percentile of it happening, of us conceding. But for some reason, in the interim, when we're getting our substitution ready, is when the opposition attack and catch us out there. I don't know what that's about, or if it's just a regularity that occurs, just with the confusion, the hubbub of, okay, this is moving around, that's moving around, they're paying attention to that. Let's strike while they're, you know, maybe preoccupied with the changes of anticipating them coming on. But that's why I say it's psychological. 56th, 57th minute. I'm in agreement with that statement. Now it feels like a signing like Traore coming across the line would make sense if this is the way that we're going to go, which is just straight up, you know, hardcore football in the first half, and in the second half trying to drop deep and low block. We're going to need some battering rams like a Wilson and a Traore. I was writing them off a bit. Apparently, I heard last night the deal had gone through. I heard this morning it isn't, um, from Sky Sports, but I don't know what to believe really. Doesn't matter really because in this moment right now, the Great Escape is underway. Like I've said, on Nick Claret and Booze's channel, that Phoenix will ascend. It will rise again, and it really feels like the QPR game was one big long friendly practice game to provide a momentum and cohesiveness between players and so forth that trickled into the Spurs game, where it was a little bit at the end. Wilson had been activated right at the last minute, um, and we had spectacular performances in that first half, and it seemed like in the second half, the dropping deep, it came back to bite us and everything like that as soon as we start dropping deep. But the boomerang effect that those two games created, or matches created, towards propelling us towards Sunderland have proven to be advantageous We just need a few other results to go certain ways, and by the time we reach leads and certain games, it's looking like we're going to be okay, and that's unbelievable. Again, I don't know if it comes down to looked like we started with a 4-4-2, but then it looked like a 4-1-1-4, or like a very it switched a bit in the second half. Of course, it was a low block, and I feel like that 4-4-2 that he utilizes in the formation that he has it in is absolute mustard. I think it's good. Scarles given headaches, out there. Fernandez, the tackles in this game were bonkers. The goal from Fernandez, bonkers. Um, Bowen 747, you knew he was landing that. And I'm absolutely happy that he did, because he needed that. We needed a Bowen moment. You know what I mean? And I think that also propelled it. I felt like we were powering up in the first half, just leveling up every every step of the way, and then going into the second half, came into a little bit of a stumbling block, but we managed. Um, Wilson was subbed on, Kilman was subbed on. Gosh, I got to admit, I was a bit hesitant in seeing Kilman come on. It's like, oh my goodness, what's this going to be about? Diouf came on. He had a nice little cross whip in at one point. Um, with this game, I'm very pleased, happy, and appreciative of the performances. Apparently, one of the Sunderland players, Shaka, got into it with some supporters in the stands. That's interesting how that went down, and it was very odd to see. But you could see, watching this game on the pitch, it was lively. They were alive. The energy was there. It's this is like Sylvester Stallone in Escape to Victory with Michael Caine, Bobby Moore, and Pele. This is like the Great Escape. I mean, this is really, um, it has begun, and Paqueta, I've always been an advocate for Paqueta because I've liked his style and his style of play, but he doesn't have Emerson there. He doesn't have Alvarez. I feel like, and I know this might be unpopular to say, we should have probably shipped off Paqueta and kept Fornals, but again, Paqueta had moments here and there. He's better played on the left and in certain formations. He doesn't want to be here all, it's no love lost. Watching Fernandez kind of gave me amnesia with regard to Paqueta. It was like just absolutely breathtaking. You know, to Debo and Mav, this right here was the one, man. A lot of people counted us out. A few people had some draws, which fair enough. If you go historically, how the cycle of our performances have gone, it would make sense to go and postulate that. But out the gate, it was just a thumping, just a straight up thumping of Sunderland, and they started pressuring a bit more second half, but they just kept running into a Great Wall of China. It just wasn't happening, um, with the exception of a very you know a bit of an unfortunate situation for us to concede a goal, but we did incredibly well. I think the Great Escape is on, and we're staying up. Come on, you Irons. I said this to Nick on Claret and Booze, because he has in the introduction of his video, a phoenix crashing, and then a phoenix flying and exploding, more or less, and the symbolism of it and things like that. Um, and I made like a little comment that Phoenix will ascend, and it really feels like that at this current moment. And yeah, Come on, you Irons, man! This is incredible. It's almost you're you're in a state of disbelief because we've been, you know, we didn't have a win since November up until this most recent bit of fortune. And also personally, you know, as a supporter going through, you know, having to rest with this pain and going back and forth to doctors and all this stuff has been really a challenge. So the respite that I missed that West Ham used to provide has revived itself. I'm really absolutely like, you know, I'm glad I got up at 6 in the morning to watch this game stateside. Uh, it's very cold over here. Also, shout out to my missus. I feel bad because I was celebrating. I was keeping it low, but you know how when you're just so excited and in tune with a football game and seeing your team winning that you know you just can't hold it in. It, 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 I proper celebration, you know what I mean? And it did give me a bit of hope and also provided, you know, a bit of respite from the pain of healing up the you know, elbow um, and what we've had to endure, you know, going into work on a Monday, you know, with West Ham having lost, you know, it was, you know, not like there were too many people in the vicinity of like, you know, my social and um, physical boundaries or you know, so areas and so forth where like I've been in the proximity of too many football supporters. I've maybe met like three since I've moved to the particular area that I'm in. Um, but actually, more than that, a lot of supporters of like, you know, like Italian and, you know, um, Spanish kind of football, things like that. Um, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it is this we've won the game today, and somehow I was weary. Like first, I thought to myself going into this, we were gonna win. Then I had a little bit of doubt, thought equalizer, but then thought, you know what, it's gonna be threes. I initially put 3-1, and then said 3-0 West Ham, but I guess you know, in my approximations, I was pretty close. Um, not that, even though it has nothing to do with me. This has to do with this team, man. Like I think this is it. This is the one. Fernandez is the one. Um, we got to tighten up that second half. Got to tighten it up. There were still spells of fighting, but by that 56th, 57th minute, like I said, it gets to be a challenge. But anyhow, everybody have a good weekend. Salute, come on, you Irons, IDHBNY. Salute to the Fellowship of the Realists, and shout out to all the channels out there, all you West Ham supporters, all you Irons. Enjoy your weekend. I am ever so happy that I got up for this and about to rest up a bit uh, while I heal and have watched our team start to heal. Hoping. Great escape is underway. Irons.